International Nurses Day, 12th of May 2020. It is amazing to see so many people. We've gone over 100 and counting, so it's fantastic to see all your smiling faces, or some of you have taken your videos off because so I can't see how smart you're looking if you haven't been to your hairdressers yet, of course. But just amazing to see so many people online. So kia ora anō, Margaret Broodcorn, Chief Nursing Officer at the Ministry of Health. So very pleased to have you all online today. We've got some special guests that are joining us this morning, and all things going well with our technology will land it. And as you can see behind me, I'm acknowledging 2020 International Year of the Nurse and Midwife, and of course
Cheryl,
today a very special day.
We're on, but this is very low.
Kia ora, Lynn, we can help you, or we can hear you, sorry. So if I could ask you all, if you are able to mute your end, and so that we don't have any other sound that's coming through, that would be great. And if you wish to speak, if you either put your hand up via the chat aspect, or but essentially today I'm not going to say too much, because as I said, we've got some very special guests that are joining us today. Hopefully you would have all received the agenda, but before we kick into that, and whilst I think most people we've now got over 120 people online, I just wanted to start our day with a little karakia, just so that we can centre ourselves. So if you bear with me, me anō tātou. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Ahea, aroha mai, I'll start again. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia mā kine ki uta, kia mā karakara, kia mā taratara ki tai. He ake ana te atākura, he tio, he hoka, he hauhu, ti hei, mauri ora. Kia ora anō. The reason that I share that prayer this morning is so that we are centering ourselves today. And as you can see from when I started, it took me a little while to center myself. So that just acknowledges that we're here today. There's a lot going on, obviously, in today's world and the changing environment of today's world. And it is an opportunity for us to come together to ensure that we're all present today, and to focus on celebrating International Nurses Day. So thank you all very much. As I said, we've got a couple of special guests that, well, a few special guests actually, and you will have the agenda in front of you, and I'm going to sort of introduce those people as we go through the session. We have an hour together, and as I said, I don't want to speak too much. I really want those that have been invited to speak to record it all with us. At the end of the session, if you are able to stay with us, because we're factoring in about an hour, and then at the end of the session, as you'll see, there's a little video that we want to share with you from the National Nursing Leaders Group. And so just want to ensure that if you are able to stay on and listen to that, that would be fantastic. So in terms of kicking off the day, I'm just going to do a share screen, so bear with me while technology works with us. And oh gosh, hang on a minute. I just have to come back here for a sec. So, can you all see that? I can't see you guys. Can you all see that?
I can see it from here. Yeah.
Excellent. Yes. So it's nice and bright, it's nice and pink, and it's just making a statement. So kia ora everyone, our nursing, a voice to lead, nursing the world to health. And of course, a day of celebrations wouldn't be the same without sharing a bit of cake. So happy International Nurses Day, everybody. And this is a very low calorie cake, and from our virtual cake store. And so I'm hoping we can all relish in the fact that we've got our cake here and we can eat it too. But for those of you, and actually this year I'm just sort of reflecting on the fact, in many years gone past, one of my duties as a chief nurse was to actually share cake and celebrate with our nurses with cake and with coffee and with fruit actually. So as you can see, there's your dose of fruit in there as well. So I just wanted to sort of share that with you, and if you are having cake today, all fruit, all coffee, wherever you are in the world or wherever you are in New Zealand, just enjoy and celebrate today. So we've got a couple of special guests. Can you see that? Yep. Can someone respond? Because I can't see you all, sorry, when I'm sharing.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just going to play this for you, and hopefully, great, and hopefully you can all hear it. So I'll just progress.
Kia ora koutou. Today is International Nurses Day, and the theme this year is Nursing the World to Health. I want to take this opportunity to thank all of our nurses out there for the sacrifices and service that you provide to us all in our communities around the world, in New Zealand, at an individual level, in our communities, and indeed globally. The story of Nurse Jenny, who nursed Boris Johnson back to health in the UK, has attracted global headlines. That story is but one story of nurses and what nurses do on a daily basis. It has brought global media attention, and I think it's a reminder of just what nurses are doing everywhere in many health systems around the world. The World Health Organization has nominated 2020 as the year of the nurse. This gives us the opportunity to make visible that hard work that nurses do. So on International Nurses Day, I want to add my thanks on behalf of all New Zealanders for the hard work that nurses put in to ensure the well-being of all of us. Thank you.
Fantastic. So it's great to actually have the Minister of Health actually acknowledge us today. So I really just want to thank the Minister's Office for doing that for us. And in terms of another special guest, we've got coming online shortly. This is Elizabeth, for those that don't know, Elizabeth Ero, who's our Chief Nurse at the World Health Organization. And Elizabeth is a very special lady. Of course, she's from the Pacific. She's from Rarotonga, and she's actually a registered nurse here in New Zealand and practice in New Zealand as well as in the Pacific, and now based in Geneva. So some words from Elizabeth.
Kia ora, nurses in New Zealand. I'm honoured to send you greetings from Geneva, Switzerland. Today, as we celebrate nurses on this International Nurses Day. This is special as it is in the International Year of the Nurse and the Midwife, and during the worst global pandemic we have ever experienced. As the global nursing workforce come together to celebrate nurses, we must also take the time to commemorate and pay respect to those nurses who have died in the line of duty during this COVID-19 crisis. Many of you are responding to the COVID-19 outbreak, placing yourselves at personal risk of contracting the disease, at risk of psychological distress, fatigue, burnout, stress from the length of hours and the number of shifts that nurses are needing to work, which may be related to staff shortages, anxiety over your patient's conditions and deaths, your own health and your family's health. Yet nurses return day after day to ensure those affected in hospitals, nursing homes, communities and those in home isolation receive the necessary care and advice. Your actions are courageous and selfless. I thank you. Nurses are an important and a critical member of multidisciplinary teams that works tirelessly and selflessly to make sure no one is left behind, and especially during health emergencies and disaster situations. The 2020 International Year of the Nurse and the Midwife saw many aim to further raise the awareness of these two professions for its contributions to universal health coverage and the Sustainable Development Goals. The global nursing and midwifery communities saw this as an opportunity to leverage for the investments in the health workforce, and especially for nurses and midwives, now and beyond 2020. In April this year, World Health Organization launched the first stage of the World's Nursing Report and calls on all governments, employers and key stakeholders to invest in nursing education, leadership and more jobs. The World Health Organization remains ready to support countries now and beyond 2020 to use the nursing data and the evidence in policy dialogues to strengthen nursing through policy shifts based on your country priority needs. Nurses, celebrate your day today and every day. I want to thank each and every one of you for all the incredibly hard and all too often unrecognised work that you do to save lives every day and everywhere. Take care, nurses, celebrate, and thank you.
Kia ora, that was just an amazing message from our chief nurse at the World Health Organization, and again, knowing that Elizabeth Ero is there representing nursing, but also as a whanaunga of our extended nursing connections in the Pacific. I'm just really honoured that she was able to provide us with a video today. Kia ora, and I'm hoping that the messages that she shared with us today have really struck true to all of our thinking on International Nurses Day, and particularly for those that have lost their lives during the COVID-19 epidemic, and particularly our nursing colleagues that have fallen during this time. So just on thinking about our next components of our day today, the basis of which, of course, the key element of our 2020 International Nurses Day is nurses a voice to lead and nursing the world to health. But before I go into that, I just wanted to, I'm just going to jump out of the share screen for a sec and just take note of the fact that actually we've got another special guest that has come online. And Ashley, I don't want to, well, I'm going to put you on the spot actually. So we've got Ashley Bloomfield, who is our Director General of the Ministry of Health. And Ashley, I just wanted to, wondered if you'd like to say hi to our amazing ropu here of nurses that have come together. We've got over 150 nurses and health colleagues online, and just wanted to see if you were able to just say a couple of words, if that was possible.
Oh, thanks very much, Margaret. Kia ora koutou katoa, and also kia ora ana, Elizabeth. Wonderful to have you joining the hui today, and we're so proud of you and the work you're doing at WHO, and I know you'll be hugely involved in the global response to the COVID-19 challenge. So thank you for making the time to be on this call today. So look, just wanted to greet everybody, acknowledge everybody on this special day. I said last week when it was International Hand Hygiene Day, at this time, actually every day should be International Hand Hygiene Day. And likewise, the work you do and the incredible role that you play in ensuring health systems around the world are delivering the care that people need is not just a once a year thing, it's an everyday. And no more so is that obvious than when we do have these sorts of challenges that we get from time to time. And it's been wonderful to see how New Zealanders have not only risen to the challenge, but also how our health system, how the nursing profession has risen to this challenge as they do. And it's wonderful in my mind to see that the rest of New Zealand has prioritised the safety and well-being of the country, the ensuring that our health system is kept safe, and that our nursing and other staff are kept safe, so that we can continue to provide the care that all New Zealanders need. So just to acknowledge your mahi, and also in signing off, also to just say a special thank you to Margaret for the work she does and the leadership she provides, both as the chief nursing officer at the Ministry of Health, but also as part of our wider leadership team. And her input's been incredible as part of our privilege in helping lead New Zealand's response to the current challenge. So kia ora koutou, thanks for joining, and I'll stay on for a few more minutes. Thanks again.
Kia ora, Ashley, thank you very much. I know you came on a little bit later, but we did have a little video message from David Clark from the Minister of Health, and Elizabeth wasn't able to join us today, but we were able to share a video from her in Geneva, and her mihi to our nurses in New Zealand. So that was really, really special, and again really special to have you online as well as our Director General and of the Ministry of Health, and to be able to share your wise words and gold with us today. So thank you very much for that. I'm just going to pop back to sharing the screen, and actually one thing you didn't see before was that we had cake to share, so there's a little bit of cake there, albeit virtual. So I'm just going to jump back to this slide here. And again, acknowledge that this year's theme for International Nurses Day is Nurses, a Voice to Lead, Nursing the World to Health. And so this is the cover of this year's International Council of Nurses, the toolkit. And the 2016 Triple Impact report outlined how developing nursing will improve health and promote gender equality and support economic growth. So there is compelling evidence, as we all know as nursing leaders, that the evidence shows that investing in and strengthening nursing will improve economic development in countries and will lead also to better health outcomes for individuals and whānau and family, communities and countries, and provide greater gender equality. Investing in education of women has significant flow-on effects for the generation of girls and women, and we now know that this extends to educating women as nurses, and not disrespecting our male nurses, because you're just as important, and you're an important element to our workforce. But this is a mihi to all of our female elements of our workforce. So this is not just a phenomenon in terms of educating women, but this is not just a phenomenon in developing countries, and that by investing in developing our Māori nursing workforce here in Aotearoa, we will have the same impact across communities in New Zealand by addressing inequalities for Māori. In terms of our other visitors that we have today, I just want to acknowledge that there are a couple of significant awards that are given out each year. And at an international level, there is the Nightingale Medal. And 2020 is, as we know, the 100-year centenary of the Nightingale Award, and the Nightingale Medal is fitting that we acknowledge this today. The award, the Nightingale Medal, is awarded on International Nurses Day and has been doing so since 1920. The medal is awarded to nurses who show exceptional courage and devotion to victims of armed conflict or natural disaster, and exemplary service or a pioneering spirit in the areas of public health or nursing education. So there have been over 32 New Zealand nurses honoured with this medal, including Louisa Akavi in 1999. And as we know, we'd like to pay respects to Louisa Akavi, a very experienced nurse and midwife who was kidnapped in Syria by ISIS in 2013 while on her 17th mission with the Red Cross. Sadly, at the moment, her fate is unknown, but I just wanted to acknowledge her, again, a Pacific nurse, and acknowledging the commitment that she has made in the line of duty. Our first speaker today, and I'll come back and introduce Felicity after I've gone through this PowerPoint, but Felicity Gates was honoured by the Nightingale Medal in 2019, and this medal is awarded on International Nurses Day every couple of years. So it's great to have Felicity online today, and we'll come back to Felicity soon. In the New Zealand context, we have the Te Akanihihe Memorial Award, and just acknowledging the New Zealand Nurses Organisation and the Te Runanga in terms of this award. And so Te Akanihihe, or Akanihihe, sorry, was our first Māori nurse to register under her own name. And nurses, midwives and tohunga have been practicing healing in Aotearoa for hundreds of years, for many, many years. Indigenous nurses have been invisible in many ways in our country's history. Our Indigenous nurses have made a huge contribution, as we know, to improving the health of all New Zealanders. Akanihihe was the first Māori nurse to register under her own name, and Māori nurses were provided care before the official registration began with Nursing Council. The NZNO and through Te Runanga have acknowledged Māori nurses who have made a significant contribution to Māori health since 2001 with this award, and again, which is given every couple of years. So this is Akanihihe here, and the award was commissioned, as I said, by Te Runanga o Aotearoa, so acknowledging NZNO's role in this memorial award. And in terms of today's guest speaker, I'll introduce Moi later on, but here Moi is with the actual award and the previous award recipients, Maureen Allen and Pare O'Brien. So I just want to acknowledge our amazing Māori nurses, and again we'll hear from Moi later in the piece. If we think about the role of nursing in COVID-19, as we know, 2020 has seen an unprecedented healthcare challenge, and the critical importance of nursing has been brought sharply into focus during COVID-19. And as we started 2020 as International Year of the Nurse and Midwife, we had no idea that it would turn the way it did in terms of how the world has changed. Having said that though, and as we've shared previously in another webinar, the opportunity has been as such that nursing has been put into the spotlight, and deservedly so, in terms of the role that nursing has in COVID-19 and the pandemic. There's been an urgent need for nursing, for the nursing sector to respond quickly and collaboratively to the pandemic, no more so in terms of the aged care sector. And we will be hearing from Frances Hughes later on as well in terms of how nursing has responded to COVID-19, and particularly from the aged care perspective. But if we think about how nurses or how nursing has had to respond quickly and collaboratively during this pandemic, just wanted to note a couple of examples where our own Nursing Council worked really closely with the ministry in seeking assistance from nurses with their lapsed APCs, and the response was fantastic. As I understand, over 900 nurses responded and renewed their APCs in readiness to actually support the COVID-19 response. What an excellent response, and we hope that those nurses that have returned to the workforce per se with their new APC, that hopefully that they will want to stay longer and maintain their APC. There's also been a lot of rapid policy development at the ministry with nursing input, especially the infection control expertise and the advice that has been given from infection control and our infection control nurse specialists. Our National Nursing Leadership Group, that hopefully if you stay on long enough in this webinar, that you'll hear from them later on at the end of these sessions after we've had our guest speakers speak. And COVID-19 has highlighted the vulnerability, as I said, and unique challenges of aged care, of the aged care sector, and as noted, Frances will talk with us later. So also I just wanted to note that as part of International Nurses Day, we've also been promoting these champion postcards where we have a number of nurses from around the country, and including our Minister Salisa, one of our Associate Ministers of Health, and our very own team in the Office of the Chief Nurse, developing postcards to demonstrate how very proud we are as nurses, and some key messages for nursing and midwifery in the context of Nursing Now, an International Year of the Nurse and Midwife. So on that note, I would like to introduce our first guest speaker, and we're just going to see if we're just going to ask Moi particularly. I'm going to introduce Felicity first, but also Moi, I'm just wondering if we could get Frances to go second, because Frances is needing to move into another commitment, and she has another a commitment that she needs to attend to. So I'm just hoping, Moi, that's okay with you. Kia ora whaia, is that all right?
Yep.
Oh, kia ora. So could I then now hand over to Felicity, but I'm going to introduce you a little bit there, Felicity. So as noted in the presentation, Felicity was the Nightingale Medal recipient in 2019. Felicity is a registered nurse who was awarded this Nightingale Award and acknowledged for her mahi. And early on, after finishing her nursing training, Felicity went on to do her OE and returned to New Zealand and gain experience in general practice and migrant health. She signed up with the International Committee of the Red Cross in 2004 after a decade of peacekeeping missions with the Royal New Zealand Nursing Corps. Deployments have taken her to numerous countries across Bosnia, Papua New Guinea, East Timor, Somalia, Sudan. Currently, Felicity is supporting the COVID-19 response with Geneva Health and the Ministry, while her current Pacific First Aid Advisor role for the NC New Zealand Red Cross is on hold. In terms of Felicity's contribution, Kerry Nichols from the New Zealand Red Cross National President said of Felicity is a dedicated and highly skilled nurse who is committed to helping vulnerable populations. Her compassion and courage while working in extremely complex and difficult situations is an inspiration to all of us in New Zealand Red Cross, to New Zealand Red Cross, and we are incredibly proud to see this recognised when she received and was honoured with that award. So Felicity, welcome. Nau mai haere mai. Really looking forward to hearing your kōrero about your reflections on 2020 International Year of the Nurse and Nursing the World to Health. Over to you. Kia ora.
Kia ora katoa. Thank you very much. And can everyone hear me well enough? Yes, yes. Great. Yes. I feel extremely humbled to be amongst my profession and these amazing people that have all joined in, so thank you. Now I'm just going to share my screen, so just bear with me, and if someone can give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down, that would be great. Okay, so International Year of the Nurse. I have stolen this from social media because I think that most of us can probably resonate with this. When I heard 2020 was going to be the year of the nurse, this was not what I expected. On this day, the birthday of Florence Nightingale, we are together as a world uniting in hand washing and good hygiene. Picture 200 years ago, when a simple act of hand washing and cleaning floors and good hygiene measures dropped mortality rate for the Crimean War by over 40%. Flip forward 200 years and here we are again. The simple act of hand washing, cleaning floors and coughing into your elbow remains the best frontline management for the current pandemic. Florence Nightingale, a nurse, a statistician, a visionary, instilled practices in use today. She raised the bar not only for nurses, but challenged the medical fraternity to their very core by her innate understanding that health wasn't just about the wound, it was about the wounded and the context, and introduced just basic hygiene. She was and remains a pioneer of evidence-based care, which is so integral in our health management and treatment today, as was alluded to by Elizabeth Ero. Sometimes I think we forget the focus of the wound, and we just focus on the wound or the problem without considering the wounded as a whole and in which context they live. I'm humbled by the work nurses have been doing globally to combat this pandemic, both their professionalism and advocating not only for their patients' care, but also for their own safety, recognising that just as in first aid, the priority is safety first. Without nurses, there'd be no 24/7 healthcare for all the hospitals and in the community. Nurses have and remain central to the COVID response in all areas of health administration and support. This affirms to me the diversity and scope of nursing, which is often undervalued and sadly by nurses themselves. I have heard time and time again, "Oh, you're a nurse, you know what to do." In fact, I heard it on the TV this morning with our two wonderful nurses who were doing their health line. What they had to cope with was way outside their job description. The expectation of a nurse is of a leader, a technician, a caregiver, an advocate, a practitioner, an educator, just to name a few. And we're often struggling ourselves to maintain our qualifications and professional development while juggling finances, families, careers, and other commitments. I think what drives me in the humanitarian field is the importance of looking at the context and adapting my skills and knowledge with my team to provide healthcare in a broader approach. Healthcare needs to be approached as a continuum of care, and my work in conflict-related countries is about supporting the gaps in the processes to strengthen the systems and capacities through direct intervention or support. I think I probably cut my teeth on primary healthcare as a practice nurse in an Auckland practice in an area that was lower socioeconomic, high migrant, and certainly multicultural. I saw what poverty and challenging access to healthcare can do for health outcomes, and that a singular health messaging approach has absolutely no impact on health behaviours and change within a multicultural society. I joined the army, yes, I'm a bit younger here. I joined the army looking for a challenge in travel, and it's pretty safe to say that I got it. And I got way more than that. I now have a large family that will remain close to me for life. As a nurse, I learnt from the medics and the doctors, and I'd like to think that maybe they learned a bit from me as well. The military provided not only diversity in health provision, but also provided opportunity for leadership and teamwork working within a broad framework. Peacekeeping missions and disaster relief provided exposure to international health systems and the effect that conflict has on an otherwise healthy population and solid health system. Incidentally, my first interaction was with the International Committee of the Red Cross, or ICRC, was in Bosnia in 1995 when they came to visit our command as part of their working modalities. Providing healthcare for people devastated by conflict changed my approach in what I had always considered as normal. My move to the Red Cross family was with the New Zealand Red Cross, and I started in the Pacific with first aid. Such an important and undervalued link in the continuum of healthcare. My approach to first aid and working with trainers, particularly in low resource conflict-affected settings, has changed dramatically over the last 10 years. A first aid kit is certainly not your priority when you're fleeing your home if you're under attack. So why would you base your training around a first aid kit and a white bandage? Keep it simple. Build on local knowledge. People have local knowledge. Don't talk about ambulances if they have to walk for 2 days to get to the nearest health clinic. Make it context relevant and very practical, because first aid is about doing, not about talking. Working in remote and conflict-affected countries has underlined to me how a robust primary healthcare approach plays an essential role in continuum of care. We all know that health triangle where up the top is the curative bit, where it's supposed to be small. If you don't have a solid primary or prevention, you will have the triangle will be flipped. I have worked in the ICRC, seconded by the New Zealand Red Cross, where nurses were the ones that provide healthcare to communities, often with limited education and less, if any, salaries. These nurses just did what they can do. Supporting vaccination campaigns, transporting vaccines, advocating to get medicine, supporting education and training of health staff are all part of my role. Learning the value of donkeys and camels as an essential method of transport, and mourning the fragility of life when refused passages at checkpoints were all the challenges of the job. Probably the biggest challenge I faced at the beginning of my career with ICRC was organising, managing the security logistics and movements of a meningitis vaccine campaign in a huge geographical area controlled by non-government forces, and with one working freezer. 75,000 vaccines were given. What an amazing team. My team were just fantastic. And my understanding of cold chain management was pretty spot on after that. I think my back was a bit ruined though. Here these are just little photos of snapshots of some of the work that I did over the last 10 years. So why do I do this? Because of these three pictures: the people, the team, and the cultures. Unfortunately though, violence towards healthcare workers is very real. And I often feel in awe of my colleagues who would provide healthcare, often to the detriment of their own safety and that of their families. The woman in the top picture, I need to acknowledge Hawa. She is also a most deserving recipient of the Florence Nightingale Medal. I worked with her for 3 years in Somalia. My hat goes off to her. She's quite phenomenal. Safety of health workers is a large part of dialogue with all our actors in the humanitarian landscape, and engaging with key communities and armed groups can be challenging. However, raising the profile of healthcare workers and the safety of healthcare has always been part of my role, drawing from my military and nursing experience, providing a platform for professional dialogue on a number of occasions. One in particular allowed me to work with Command to facilitate the disarmament of 1,000+ weapon bearers inside a hospital. This was critical for the safety of casualties and for my team's safety. At this time, I would like to say kia kaha to our Louisa Akavi, our nursing colleague who has been missing for 6 years. She is loved, she is respected, and in our thoughts. As are those nurses that have lost their lives in the line of work. We think of you often and thank you for your service. In conclusion, the International Year of the Nurse and the current pandemic is a timely reminder that nurses make up a large percentage of our workforce in New Zealand, with a diversity of skill and knowledge covering a continuum of healthcare from point of injury through to rehabilitation. When I see the professionalism and drive of the global nursing response well represented in New Zealand, I feel proud to be a nurse in Aotearoa and privileged to have worked with incredible teams, learning and adapting to new cultures, with brave and professional health staff. I think it's only fitting to conclude with a quote from Florence, who would likely be impressed with the professionalism of nursing today, understanding the ongoing challenges, but remind us that humanity and progress should go hand in hand. Thank you for listening.
Kia ora, Felicity. That was amazing. Thank you for your kōrero and acknowledging, and particularly all of the mahi that you've done, but also the mahi that all nurses around the world and in response to crisis have undertaken, and particularly again those our colleagues that have fallen, and the mahi that to Louisa as well. So I just got a bit of a tear in my eye as I reflected on all of those nurses and our colleagues that have lost their lives in the course of the commitment that they make to the health and wellbeing of the communities they serve. So, look, with that, if I can thank you, Whai Moe, for renegotiating our agenda and program. So I'd love to be able to hand over now to Dr. Frances Hughes, and I'm sure for many of you will need no introduction, who is well known to many, as is the other guests that we've had online today. But if I could just acknowledge Dr. Hughes in 2001 was the first nurse to be awarded the Harkins Fellowship in Healthcare Policy, and in 2005 she was made an Officer of the New Zealand Order of Merit for services to mental health. Since this role, Frances has held senior management and nursing positions at a global level and in the World Health Organization as well, and was the first facilitator of the WHO's Pacific Island Mental Health Network. And she was a Chief Nursing Officer and Midwifery Officer at Queensland Health, Chief CEO at the ICN, and the University of Auckland's first Professor of Nursing. Her current role is General Manager Nursing and Clinical Strategy at Oceania Healthcare. And welcome, Frances, nau mai haere mai. And again, in terms of the current COVID-19 response and the impact on all of our communities, but for you to be able to share with us that actual impact on aged care is really important. So kia ora, Frances, over to you.
Kia ora katoa. It's indeed a great privilege, and thank you for the invite, and thank you from the aged care sector for allowing a voice at your table. So I just very humbled and acknowledge all of those wonderful nurses on this particular day. New Zealand nurses who are overseas working, caring for other countries, and a korero to you, Felicity. It's just amazing the work that we see nurses doing. I was asked to talk about the reflections on aged care, and you've got me naked and raw. I'm just going to talk to you, tell you some of the stories, the narrative. Just to contextualise, 40,000 aged residential care beds in New Zealand, over 650 aged care providers in New Zealand, and a tenth of all nurses in New Zealand work in aged care. So I came back into New Zealand 6 months ago. I was indeed honoured to be asked by the New Zealand Aged Care Association to chair the first clinical nursing leadership group for New Zealand Aged Care, in recognition that aged care is nursing, and the older New Zealanders deserve and have a right to special clinical care by registered nurses. And the nurses, even though registered nurses are absolutely integral to aged care, we are the leader of the team of many other health workers, and I just want to acknowledge that. The Aged Care Association setting up that group, for me, allowed us to have a voice and a profile. We have a collective and consistent voice. We started off having strategic meetings, and I just want to shout out to Kathy, Virginia, Rhonda, Shane, Linda, Tania, Gillian and Anna, and we represent these amazing providers in New Zealand, big and small, national, listed on the stock exchange, and owner-operators. What was clear when COVID started to occur, and in our first meeting in January and February, was that we needed to actually start thinking about what this meant for us. And at that stage, in my belief, aged care nursing had a very low profile. I believe that many didn't really understand what we did. They didn't understand our facilities, but it soon became clear with this amazing nursing leadership group, the names I've just spoken about, that COVID galvanised executive nurse leaders in aged care in this country, saying that our profile was one of camaraderie and absolute support. We started to have to work on providing advice not only for our own provider arms and our own services, but to the ministry, and I send out the fact that, you know, we strongly saw the ministry as the primary source of truth. Now, I use that word because it became very apparent that we were in a maelstrom of activity where everybody was writing advice, and much of that advice was about us when many people did not know us. So we got a very clear slogan going very early, that nothing about us without us. And we started to link in and become influencers of, there was working groups established. We had the New Zealand Aged Care Task Force, and I was on that with other CEOs and our clinical advisor, Rhonda. We started also working closely with having to write guidance, vulnerable assessments for staff over 70s, which we had many in aged care. The issues around guidance of what level 3 meant, what level 4 meant, and, you know, strongly advocating that people understood the context of how we worked. And that, so we became, to me, the aged care literacy agents. We became, as executive nurses, the ones who were constantly discerning and translating, critically analysing information from multiple sources. We were continually being asked to look at documents. We were continually we had calls every day. And then, of course, we had an outbreak. Now, the outbreak could have occurred in any of our 650 facilities. And I just want to contextualise this. A third of aged care providers in Europe had been drastically affected by COVID-19, 30% or more. And that goes also for the UK, and that also goes to the US. Less than 1% of the aged care providers in New Zealand got COVID. Okay, so what we say to people is, get this in perspective. We have done an amazing job of protecting the elderly, the most vulnerable, keeping our staff working, and that was at no mean feat. The kind of critical analysis, logistics that occurred for providers, and the collectivity and the camaraderie amongst these stunning nursing leaders cannot go, unnoticed. the ability for people to think on their feet. There was no rule book for many. We had infection control principles. We are all health certified by the Health Cert. We all have the same infection control standards as hospitals. We have hospital level care. We have dementia care. But constantly we had to think about our residents, our staff, and our situations, and how we could modify, redraft, refine policies and procedures. And this was amazing. I mean, I know that without the support of this group, my own organisation, we were constantly having to look at things, and our own internal infection control groups stepped up. The nurses and our infection control nurses stepped up. The discerning evidence was amazing. There was the, I call it, we didn't battle the virus because only less than 1% of us got the virus. We were battling ignorance. So the battle that most of aged care have had to face is the battle of informing and educating others about our practices, and also providing reassurance to all the people that continually thought that we were just going to have major mortalities, that we did not know what we were doing. And the voice of those nurses on the coalface, hearing bad media reports all the time, is what we as leaders had to deal with. And we supported our staff. We kept on going and being able to support those in the 5 clusters that also could have been any of us. We sent them gifts. We sent them masks. We sent them thank you cards. We sent them flowers. There was never a judgmental attitude amongst any of us, because by the grace of God, any of us could have been in that position. But we had an amazing, I suppose, attention to detail and also a prioritisation. There was many of us working 14 and 16 hours. There was people, because the courier system in New Zealand hasn't been that great, driving PPE gear, buying PPE gear, ensuring that our staff had adequate PPE. And I give a shout out to the DHBs. Some of the DHBs, amazing support. Others, not so great, but that's the reality. But, you know, we always guaranteed that we would be protecting and ensuring humanised care as we go, making sure that the third of palliative care deaths that occur in the country occur in aged care, and that we ensured infection control practices so people could be with their loved ones when they were in their end of life. Dealing with relatives, dealing with the mental health of our elderly, and I know personally in my organisation how I've developed the best of my mental health materials. I adapted the best of my mental health materials to send out to staff, to send out to how they dealt with relatives. Zoom became the way of connectivity with relatives and families, getting tablets, getting iPhones, making sure that these are all things that the nurses recognised. And if nothing more, the importance of nursing leadership in aged care with the ability to respond and make decisions has come through. There's a lovely sense of kind of security in what's happened over the last 6 to 7 weeks. There was not a sense of panic. There was a sense of, let's do this well, let's keep going, but also knowing that this is not over for us. We still have a vulnerable population, and as we go through the next period of time, we have to be able to continue to take note of what we have learnt. We have learnt to manage up and down and around. We've learnt to have discern evidence, to look at international colleagues. Some of our providers have international arms. We had seminars from microbiologists, which we commissioned ourselves. And we also constantly relocated back to what is right for our residents and what is right for our staff. The recovery period is going to be crucial to us. We need to know the lessons from what we've learnt. We need to know that there will be a change in practice. There's a change in infection control practices. There's a change in the way that we work. And there's also a change in how we work with families and our clients. We were looked after the most vulnerable at a time when we were the ones that were protecting them. And I think that is an amazing honour for all of us to have been involved. It is in the face of a pandemic, the search for perfect evidence may be the enemy of public good. And we all the time had to take some really purist approaches and push back and put the reality of providing humanised care to our people. I say a big thank you to the community that respected the ability to not see their loved ones. I thank the New Zealanders that stayed away. I thank all the ministry and their guidance and support, allowing us to push back at times, to be able to have that voice of saying, actually, this is not going to work for us, and allowing us to be discerning. And all of those who did the long hours, we're still doing them. This is not, the pedal's not going to come off, because we need to make sure that we have a safe environment. I also know that in recovery, we need New Zealand nurses to come back into aged care. We need a supply of future workforce in aged care, and we need it now more than ever. We are going to have difficulty with our international recruitments, but it's an amazing place to be. We've employed more nurse practitioners in this time. We are getting more careers. We've got wider scope than we've ever had. So the lesson is being able to work across and galvanise nursing leadership, and being able to have the trust and security of knowing that they've got your back. And I just want to thank Marguerite for allowing my messages to come across today. And as we go into today, I just want to acknowledge that we have a wonderful healthcare system. We never had a crisis of healthcare like other countries did. And I think a lot of that goes back to us continually being able to awhi and stretch out and communicate with each other. So kia ora katoa. Thank you.
Kia ora, Frances. Thank you very, very much for the naked and raw kōrero that you provided today, and also the plugs in terms of the recruitment for aged care. And really, as was the intention for this kōrero and inviting you here today, was to really highlight an example of where nursing has made a significant difference to the COVID response. So thank you for the very wise words that you've shared today, and also maintaining and contextualizing aged care in the scheme of things, and I just think that it's just amazing. And I think what the comments that you made around that COVID actually galvanised the nursing leadership in aged care, and indeed across Aotearoa in terms of what COVID has done for us. Whilst it has been something that has changed our world and rocked our world significantly, it is also, there are some silver linings in all of this, and I think you've identified that, notwithstanding, and at the very least highlighting the important role that nurses in the aged care environment and the work that you've done, the leadership group through the aged care nursing leaders have undertaken through this time. So thank you so much. Thank you for your time. And I know that Frances has now then is going off to then support more kōrero and collaboration and that galvanising element within the aged care sector. So thank you, Frances, for all that you're doing. And if you can pass on all of our respect and our honouring to those in the aged care sector, thank you for that. Kia ora. Right, so now in terms of our next guest, and I hope that she's online, because she said before that she was being technologically challenged, and our Whaia Moi Milne, is she still here?
I'm here.
Still on? Oh, kia ora Whaia. So lovely. So and I'm not saying that you're technologically challenged. It's probably more around the coverage, the internet coverage. But if I could introduce again someone who doesn't really need a lot of introduction, because she's so well known to the sector, and her leadership in terms of Te Ao Māori and in terms of nursing, and in particular mental health nursing. But Whaia Moi grew up in Matawa, Taitokero, and of course it's probably why she's having the challenges with the technology, if that's where she is today, by the way, she might be. Her mum was a registered nurse and was well known in the rohe of Ngāti Hine for caring for many whanaunga, for families. Moi first trained as a psychopedic hospital nurse in Māngere, trained at a psychopedic hospital in Māngere in Auckland as a young adult, and then went on to Ngā Whatu Hospital Nelson to commence her formal training as a psychiatric nurse. Whaimoe is infinitely knowledgeable in Māori health, clinical experience, education and research. Obviously is fluent in Te Reo and has been an inspirational and continues to be an inspirational and prominent leader of Māori development and Māori mental health for many years and many years to come. Kia ora whaia, over to you. I think I've lost you somewhere. You still with us?
Okay, no, I'm still here.
There you go. Kia ora.
Yeah. Tēnā koe, kia ora tātou, tuatahi Margaret, tēnei te mihi atu kia koe e whakatau I tō katohu I runga I te karakia. And because that's an essential part of when we talk about our roles as nurses, what are the sorts of things that we do. And often, te āhuatanga o te noho, o te tau o te Māori, o te tau o te Wairua, is not regarded as one of the essential components of what we do. So I just want to mihi for that very reason. I want to just, and I'm really glad that I'm up here in Taitokoro. I'm at the tail of the fish, the tail of the whai, which actually has the ability to steer, but also the ability to sting. So hopefully some of the things that and interesting at this stage of the hui. And interesting because we're in the time now of change. I want to actually start my kōrero. I listened to Efeso Collins this morning talking about it is now time and it's opportunity now to innovate and to make innovative changes. And what he said was that Māori and Pacifica actually know how to innovate better than anybody else because we have needed to do so in all our nursing and our health experience. So the challenge for us as nurses now and in the work that we do in Māori Health and Pacifica Health is to actually be really, really clear about creating new normals and new ways of being for our people, Māori and Pacifica. Let me just sort of, it was really, really mihi to Felicity. When I first got into this bright white institution called nursing, I saw on the wall a picture of Fabiola, and I actually made it my business to become, I thought, I'm going to be like that. Except that it didn't take me long to realize that actually there was no way that I could be like that. They were absolutely different from my own knowledge and experience of being Māori and being a Māori nurse actually meant. So then I saw Florence Nightingale and I thought, oh no, I'll be like Florence Nightingale. And of course that didn't work either. And then I discovered Huria Mātinga, and then I discovered Akinehi Hei. And what they actually brought into my thinking and my journey of nursing was how we have to actually retain and work from the integrity, from the skills, from the taonga that we've been gifted by our ancestors, which is that we do know how to care for our people. The thing that's actually really challenging about that is, and because people like myself and Carl Pulufuendeman and a number of us who participated in teaching cultural therapy and nursing and all the different things over the years, is that we know that we have an excellence of best practice as Māori nurses. We know that because we know that when we become involved, and it's really, really poignant at this time that we're dealing with COVID-19, because to get Māori to come and get their vaccinations, to get their assessments done, required Māori nurses on the front line, required Pacifica nurses on the front line. And that's why you get these, within one day at Te Runanga o Ngāpuhi, for instance, they had 150 people turn up. You have one day in South Auckland with the Pacifica group, they had over 200 people turn up. We had the Ngāti Hina Health Trust visited all the marae, and all the marae were inundated with people coming for their assessments and for their flu vaccinations. They did both at the same time. And why did that happen? And so, when we talk about nursing and we say the words of working with your community, doing the primary healthcare thing, and one of the things that sort of struck me as Felicity was speaking was that we as Māori nurses and we as Pacifica nurses are always almost at high levels of anxiety around our work, because we are dealing with the crisis in our ordinary lives in the work that we do. We're dealing with the high incidences of whether it's the fear of the impacts of COVID. And of course, there's some of our Māori nurses, we're on the Taitokoro border controls, let me tell you, and offering people immunization and all that. They actually went there because at the end of the day, there is a different way. You've got to know your community, you have to know your real to start getting our people to be involved and to participate in all that. So with that, I just want to, so I go back to, I started with Fabiola, then with Florence Nightingale, and then went to Huria Martina, and when, my goodness, we have all these people or as well, so as well our heroes. So I want to acknowledge some of the heroes of Māori nursing, and Margaret, you're one of them. But outside of that, you've got Irihapiti Ramsden, you've got Kiri Nuku, who is currently with the Runanga of the nurses, actually being very staunch and absolutely supported by us around the value of Māori who are nurses. I want to talk about Nicole, who's actually now the current chairperson of the Midwifery Council, and all the work that is taken to get her there free. She implemented this, I heard, a Voice of Pacific Health Services. And in that, I do actually want to acknowledge that there are a number of people who have worked in little places around the motu. And I kept thinking about, our successful, because they came off the backs of Māori nurses. All the Māori providers in the first instance were set up around attracting Māori nurses back to work within our communities, because to make a difference, we needed to work from that tikanga Māori point of view. As well as, and that's not to say that we didn't want the clinical, Western clinical skills as well. So, so we got the Māori providers. We had actually a whole lot of courageous Māori nurses who continue, and some of them outside of the norm of what's expected, who continue to push the boundaries, who continue to say, and it's really interesting that in the various roles that I've had, right from, I started comparing health priorities for Aotearoa from 1974. It went from 1974 to 1984, and the priorities didn't change. Went from 1984 to 1994, the priorities didn't change. In just recent times, the 10 priorities within Māori Health and within Pacifica Health are still remaining the same. And our nurses are leading out on that in an environment that is extremely difficult, when the roles and the skills and the knowledge that Māori bring into this environment are relegated to the support services, or to the kaiawhina thing. So in kind of my reflections of what's been happening over, not actually over the last few years, but in the last few months, that we're in a time of change. We actually need to not go back to normal. We need to, in terms of Māori health, because Māori nurses make the hugest amount of difference to Māori health. So we need to not go back to normal, because normal means accepting the high COPDs. And normal means accepting that people are not accessing services. That's what normal in the past was. Normal in the new world means that Māori and Pacifica are getting good, productive, efficient, and effective access to what their health needs are, not what's being determined by people who actually have other sorts of information to make decisions about them. So I tino mihi au kinga, now that even though I have not actually been an actual practitioner for a few years now. I've been in education and all that, but I turn up to the marae or I turn up to the hui, and the kuia or the kaumātua says, oh, come here, I need this because I haven't seen my nurse for a long time. So once you become a nurse, you never stop being a nurse. And it's like all the things that we do for building new generations of our children. And, you know, and let me say, in this, in the, people say, oh my goodness, all the mental health, all our people with mental illness are going to become really, really unwell. And one of the things that gives me heart and that I do know is that the Tangata Whaiora networks have absolutely been the best support that they can to their own people with the support of the Māori nurses, their environment. So, yeah. And of course, we're Indigenous Māori health, but we're also seen as not only in Māori health, but as having skills that we and information and knowledge that we should be and could be offering to the world around how to don't normally access health services. That's really what I had a lot more bits to say, but I know that our time's down. But I do want to say is we need to be talking about, in this international, I want to honour the Māori nurses out there who do all this work, and I want to honour the Māori midwives, who when I went to their hui last year, who are talking about they still having to provide food for people. So they go and do their midwifery, their clinical practice, but going into a whānau that's impoverished, that doesn't have access to stuff, and the midwife, the Māori midwives are the ones who bring a sense of care and kindness to them. And I want to mihi to Māori midwives. I also want to mihi to our Māori mental health nurses, who are often in the whole nursing scheme of things, reluctant participants in, you know, publicly talking about what they do. And I also want to Pacifica nurses in all those areas as well, who really work in New Zealand in this almost crisis zone to ensure that at least their people are getting access to good levels of care. I just want to finish with Efeso's kōrero again. We need to innovate, we need to create a new norm, and Māori and Pacifica are the best at creating or at innovating a new environment. So, kia ora tātou. Thank you for asking me. Ka nui tēnā.
Oh, kia ora whae moe. That is just superb, and unfortunately we lost some of the connection there along the way, obviously from our Tai Tōkero connections, but I think the what we did here was so extremely powerful, and from the comments that were coming through the chat line, recognising your wisdom and your kōrero, the need to honour our Māori and Pacific nurses, the work that they do, and the retention of the skills and tonga from our tupuna that we apply in an everyday, and also that kōrero that you drew on around the normal of being in the new world, and the need to innovate and create in this new world. So thank you very much. Beautiful whakaaro, and just and I know that through the chats that have coming through, the acknowledgement of your wisdom and your ability to share those very strong words that we will hold today for International Nurses Day and going forward. Kia ora whae.
Kia ora.
Kia ora. Oh, look, it's just been a fantastic webinar. Thank you, everyone, for those that have been able to stay on the line. And I just wanted to again acknowledge our speakers, and I'll start drawing to a close. However, on our agenda, for those of you that can stay, there is a video from our National Nursing Leaders Group as a sort of a final message, which is sort of our, if you think about after our speakers have spoken, this is our waiata to end our kōrero today with this video that will play. So if you can stay and watch, that would be great. I'll just have to make sure that Deborah is getting that sort of set up for a technical sharing. But if I could just sort of recap and just acknowledge all of our wonderful speakers today, the kōrero from our Minister of Health, Dr. David Clark, his ability to even just connect with us and share his thoughts, and acknowledging the amazing nurses that we have in New Zealand and beyond. Our beautiful Elizabeth Ero, and as a chief nurse for the World Health Organization, and her very, again, wise words and sharing with us and acknowledging the great work and the contribution that nurses have to the sustainable goals and to the greater work that the World Health Organization is aiming to achieve. And then of course we had a little cameo there from Ashley, and acknowledging the great work that he's been doing, but also his commitment to improving health outcomes and the role that nurses play in doing so. Felicity, again, your reflection on all that you do and the sharing of what you do. I like the actual connection with hand washing, that with what we've learnt from the past, we're applying for today, and certainly won't be lost for the future. So the importance of that, and as you indicated, not expecting that 2020 would be the year of the nurse and midwife, but hey, really, it had to happen sometime. And as Ashley said, today is the acknowledgement. We've got a year of International Year of the Nurse and Midwifery. Actually, every day and every other day should be acknowledging the great work that our colleagues do. And then of course to Frances and her sharing and setting the context of aged care in the COVID situation, and indeed the comparative between what's happening here in New Zealand and around the world, and particularly in Europe, and that we are doing really well. We are making amazing inroads. We are doing really well in terms of managing this virus, as well as stamping it out, and actually again the really important role that nurses play in responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. And then finally from Whaiamoi, and maybe that is, in terms of he tohu tēnā, Whaiamoi, that maybe it was best that we did finish with your beautiful kōrero around acknowledging our nurses and midwives, and acknowledging those Māori nurses that have gone before, but also our tupuna and what we take from them and what we apply and how we apply that in our practice. And again, coming back to what should be seen as the new norm, and how we reset that in terms of the innovation. So on that note, I just wanted to say, look, thank you for your comments. We've got lots of comments, and then what we're going to do is take all of the comments that people have shared and acknowledging our speakers, but also some of the beautiful whakaaro that has come through, even in those messages, acknowledging the inspiring kōrero that we've had from our speakers today. The very much the catchphrase of the proud to be a nurse here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, acknowledging the courage and the capability and the skills of our nurses in New Zealand, and the wisdom. So I just wanted to say that it's just an amazing, beautiful way to start our day. And in terms of throughout the day, what we'd like to do, we're going to confirm some of the videos that we've had from Elizabeth Ero and the Minister, and indeed the one that's coming you can very much share, but we just want to check in with those other videos that would be able to share and bombard Twitter and Facebook and your own respective websites that you manage, to be able to again reinforce the celebration of nursing in Aotearoa, New Zealand. On that note, I'm going to close with a karakia, and then of course our video will be played, and that will be essentially the sort of the icing on the cake, as it were. If I start with a cake this morning, we're going to end with a little cake analogy. That our video will be our waiata, or our icing on the cake, to finish our hui today. So in closing, just in terms of karakia, mea noi tātou. Kia tau, kia tātou katoa, te ata whai o tō tātou arakia ihi karaiti, me te aroha o te atua, me te whiwhinatanga ki te wairua tapu, ake. Āmene. Over to you, Deborah, to play our video, and we'll end on that. And kia ora everyone, thank you for joining us today. Keep in touch. We're going to try and do some more webinars throughout, and we're getting a bit more savvy with this process. So look forward to seeing you all again. Deborah, over to you.
Kia ora koutou katoa. 2020 is International Year of the Nurse and Midwife, and the 12th of May represents a day to celebrate International Nurses Day. The National Nursing Leaders Group, NNLG, is an amazing rōpū of nursing leaders from around Aotearoa, New Zealand. NNLG represents nurses from Māori Pacific, education, practice, professional, industrial and regulatory parts of the sector. We would like to take this opportunity to wish you all an amazing 12th of May, International Nurses Day 2020. Kia ora.
Congratulations to all nurses for all that you do and all that you have done. Let's use this moment in time, this year of the nurse, to draw on all that we know about how services don't meet the needs of the most vulnerable, and use this as a time when we take much greater leadership for the direction and design of health services. Let's use what we do well to do it even better.
Kia ora koutou. This is a message for all of the nurses in Aotearoa, New Zealand. It's my privilege to acknowledge and thank you for your service, not just in this COVID-19 moment, but throughout the health system. You are a critical part of how we respond to the needs of our population. In this year of the nurse, which celebrates nursing globally, it's never been more evident the critical role that nurses play in the response to healthcare need. I am proud to be a nurse and proud to count myself as one of your colleagues. Thank you and happy International Nurses Day.
Kia ora koutou. Hope your International Nurses Day is going well. I want you to all just perhaps spend just a moment thinking of all the wonderful nurses that have nurtured us and that have been part of our professional lives, and all of those nurses that are coming before us, the new graduates. We've got a fantastic workforce here in New Zealand. Everyone's working really hard at the moment. So stand proud, be strong, and enjoy your day. Kia ora tātou.
Thank you, nurses, to the difference that you make every day in the lives of individuals, whānau and communities across New Zealand's health and disability sectors. Be kind, stay safe. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou katoa. On this International Nurses Day, I'd like to take a moment to think about my colleagues here in New Zealand and across the world. Nurses who go to work every day with their heads full of knowledge and their hearts full of empathy to make a difference in people's lives. E tangata, e tangata, e tangata. It is the people. Nurses, be proud of who you are and what you do. I am. You rock.
Happy International Nurses Day from the New Zealand Nurses Organisation. Thank you for your contribution to the COVID-19 response and to looking after the health of people in Aotearoa. Thank you.
Greetings for International Nurses Day. Nursing the World to Health is our theme for this year, and what a pertinent theme. You bring the best to bear through your knowledge and your skills, your intelligence and your problem solving. And I hope that you'll come out of this feeling that you belong to a stunning profession. I thank you for everything you do.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora from Te Ao Maramatanga, College of Mental Health Nurses. We'd just like to take this opportunity to say a big thank you to all of the nurses in New Zealand who make a difference in the lives of people with mental health needs, people with addiction and people with disabilities. People like you and people like me. We thank you for your work with families, whānau and communities. And wow, 2020 is certainly the year of the nurse. And you know, together we have got this. We thank you for your commitment, your courage and your compassion. We encourage you to take care of yourselves through this time. So reach out. We're here. Te Ao Maramatanga is with you every step of the way. Ngā mihi nui. Suzette.
Kia ora koutou. I just want to say a very big thank you to all of New Zealand's nurses for the awesome work that you do every day. I also want to make a special acknowledgement for the contribution that nurses have made across New Zealand in caring for our patients and our communities in COVID-19. Happy International Nurses Day.
Kia ora. Wairea te ara ki te ora, clearing the way towards health and well-being. Thank you, nurses, for the courage, commitment and sacrifice that you have all given, not just in our current pandemic, but for every day that you serve, reach out, engage, listen and care. Tomo mai ki te akoranga haura, whakahokia ki te ao whānui. Enter to learn, go forth to serve.
Kia ora. Best wishes for International Nurses Day. Thank you for your professionalism and for your commitment and the stunning care that you provide to the public of New Zealand. The public have trust and confidence in us as nurses. Stand proud and stay safe during COVID-19.
Aloha lele and many warm Pacific greetings to all in the noble profession of nursing. Happy and safe International Nurses Day. Stay the course of fight.
Kia ora, Bulwinaka and warm Pacific greetings. Happy International Nurses Day. 2020 is designated as the year of nurses and midwives. And as we go through this COVID-19 pandemic, you have all stood up and stood out, adding more mana to our profession. You have all taken care and service to another level. Let's all be proud and enjoy this 2020 International Nurses Day. Take care, stay safe, and stay well.
A tēnei te mihi kia koutou katoa. This is a message for all you fabulous nurses out there. Kia kaha, be strong. Kia maia, be brave. Kia manawa nui, be steadfast in the face of COVID-19. But most of all, be proud of who you are and what you do. Kia ora.
Kia ora. I just wanted to say that COVID-19 has really put the spotlight on nursing around the world. And I think it's shown people how hugely important the work that nurses do is.
Kia ora. Happy International Nurses Day. I just wanted to say a big thank you to all nurses in New Zealand. Thanks so much for everything you're doing to keep us safe.
Hi, happy International Nurses Day. I am grateful for everything that you do on a daily basis, but in particular during this COVID pandemic.
I'd like to do a shout out to all the nurses of Aotearoa, New Zealand. Now more than ever, as we face COVID-19 and seek to celebrate International Year of Nursing, we should take a moment to consider the contribution that nurses make around the world. For nurses' care, commitment and hard work. I'm proud to be a nurse in New Zealand. To all the nurses in the world, stay proud, be strong, be kind, and know that you make a difference.
Kia ora anō. I wanted to take this opportunity to firstly acknowledge our healthcare workers and nurses who have lost their lives while caring for others during the COVID-19 pandemic. While COVID-19 has changed our world forever, it has reinforced the importance of nursing. Nurses play a significant role in the lives of patients, of people, and the community. Now more than ever, the world needs nurses. Kia kaha, kia maia, kia manawa nui. May the 12th, International Nurses Day. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Well, there you go. What more can I say other than to say Happy International Nurses Day, everybody. Great to have you on board. Thank you for the wonderful chats and comments that have been made thus far. We will share the videos, and the ones that we need to get permission for, we will share. But again, thank you for this time that we've had this morning as a start to the day. And I know there's many other celebrations that are occurring around the country. So we'll try and get this video, particularly the National Nursing Leaders Group video, out to you all to share. But again, thank you so much. Ngā mihi kia koutou katoa. Have a fantastic day. Have a fantastic year. Have a fantastic year. 2020 International Year of the Nurse and Midwife. Kia kaha, kia mai, kia manawa nui. Kia ora koutou katoa. Signing off. Okay.